Hi, this presentation is to walk through the mini course Personal Finance, highlighting the biblical foundation, story, metaphor, and required elements. The overarching biblical principles are focused on stewardship, generosity, and spiritual wealth. I've included these at the bottom of each page to make the lasting impact and the true why more evident to the students. The overall metaphor is navigating the financial roadmap, and each lesson has an italicized sentence describing how the title connects to the metaphor. I'll show you examples of this as we progress. Moreover, the overall map serves as one of the images to guide the students through the unit story. So here is the course homepage for Personal Finance, and there is quite a bit to cover when we look at the biblical foundation, story, metaphor, and the required elements. So I'll just kind of try to work my way through each of the lessons while also covering those things at the same page. So while many things are repeated throughout, I'm going to try to just say a little bit on each page. So on this particular page, I would like to point out the course components and the instructor introduction. And also notice that the course schedule, or those links along the top, that there are 9 lesson pages. This is our course introduction. Here's an intro to the students, a course schedule where you can have the click links to the lessons, or again, that's also across the top. And there is the introduction. And those are our overall foundational principles, which each lesson will then map back to one of those to try to make it a little bit more clear on how it satisfies those overall principles that we're working towards. And then of course at the bottom, keywords is for that keyword search. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the lesson 1, Basecamp. So let's move on to the Basecamp. And based on previous assignment feedback, I worked hard to create a more conversational purpose and why for the students. So before right here, I just had, it said like the district goal or the school goal, but I noticed that the feedback that I received from you said maybe make it like more conversational and ask the why to really make the students think about it. And then I also received some feedback about make sure to connect each of those lessons back to the metaphor. So that's the part right there that's in italics where you'll see that throughout each lesson is I'm trying to make that metaphor continue to actually grow for the students throughout that story. And 2 of the technologies that I used in this section include, let me go ahead and keep scrolling here. There are a lot, but I'm just going to try to focus on, I'm just picking a couple on each, so I'm not just talking forever on one lesson. Okay, so the 2 on this one that I wanted to mention was the Kahoot vocabulary, which Kahoot was brand new for me. And you can kind of see as the classes were going through it, for some reason it was closing the students out, but those extra copies, once you try it, those ones should work. Should take you to the Kahoot. And that one I used as vocabulary. So it kind of served as the pre-teaching vocabulary for our English language learner students, and also was beneficial just overall to all the students to kind of get a glimpse of what we'd be talking about. The other technology is the Desmos Classroom, and that one is on transformations. It's just a little activity where I don't know if you can see it, that tiny little purple ball will drop and try to collect the stars. And the students recreate those different equations to try to gather those up. And another thing I'd like to mention, something new, I'm going to scroll back up here, is I have a little pre-unit survey, and I actually do this exact same survey at the beginning and then at the very end as a follow-up. And I pose them as what would you do types of questions, and each question provides a relatable scenario where students are surveyed on how they expect that they would react in a similar situation. And each question correlates, just kind of in a modern day scenario, to one of the 3 parables related to one of the 3 biblical principles. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and keep scrolling down here just so that you can see all of it. And then there's the lasting impact, which I think I'm going to talk more about on a different page. So let's go ahead, and this time I'm just going to click next to move on to lesson 2, Path of Percentages. And for this lesson on percentages, I'd like to point out that each lesson includes a smaller image of the overall actual map. So you can see kind of where I zoomed in. I especially like the photos that accompany each activity. So by that, I mean, so I'm just trying not to scroll too fast. Each of these images that you see, like in the videos and the games, I actually had to, it's not a quick link that showed up when I put those in there. I actually had to go and choose an image And I really liked it rather than just the text, even though it did take some time, just so the students have a better idea of what type of activity they may be about to work through. And I'd also like to point out here that the lasting impact and foundational principles addressed in the lesson are at the bottom of each page. So let me scroll down. So for example, you can see the lasting impact where I state it as the goal is for you to blank and then do blank and then why it's beneficial and then how we can welcome others into understanding that overall goal, that overall lasting impact. And then at the very bottom in the italics, you can see how it connects back to one of the 3 foundational principles, which is the overall purpose of the unit. So moving on to lesson 3, I have the taxation tunnel for income tax. And in this section, I would like to showcase some of the standard elements found in each lesson. So each lesson contains study slides. So study slides, they're on the left. In the center, you can see the guided notes. And then if I scroll down, we can see the textbook exercises. Those are gonna be at the very bottom. But those are the printable resources. So we have our study slides, guided notes, and then the textbook exercises. They're at the very bottom. And furthermore, at least 2 supplemental resources are available in every lesson. And I just put those as bonus resource 1 and bonus resource 2. Additionally, each lesson includes a summative, self-guided assessment with feedback. And that is through a 5-question Google quiz form. And I've just titled each of those checkpoints. So you can see on the far right, checkpoint. And at this point, my students have been working through this through the past couple of weeks. Today, they're finishing up lesson 8, and they've really gotten used to every single day. They know that they're gonna do their notes, that they have a choice of where to get the notes from. They know to look for the textbook exercises, and then they have to do the checkpoint. And there's probably going to be something else that they have to look for, either an interactive activity, maybe a discussion. They've kind of gotten the whole format down, and they also appreciate all those bonus resources. And I've seen a lot of them playing the games. They're just really enjoying the total layout. I just wanted to mention that real quick. So for lesson number 4, I'm going to go ahead and click along the top on this one. And we have interest intersection, that is simple interest. So as we move on to interest intersection, I want to highlight the use of content videos without a quiz. And I don't know if you've noticed as I've been scrolling through, but nearly all of the lessons, in addition to the study slides, guided notes, and textbook exercises, they have video 1 and video 2. So here you can see that on the far right, video 1 and video 2. And what I've been doing is that the students are required to choose at least one. So if they learn best from watching the study slides, which it's pretty well split, about a third and a third for each of my classes. About a third of them really like the study slides. I think because the way they kind of scroll through it, my guess, is total guess here, is that it almost kind of reminds them of social media because they're just kind of scrolling through the text, through the examples. The guided notes, that's kind of more interactive, and I've seen quite a few students like that, especially if they've had maybe a little bit more experience, or as we've been progressing our way through the formulas, they're more comfortable with that. But a lot of people just learn from watching videos, which totally makes sense. So they take their notes based on the video. They take their notes based on whatever works for them, and then they turn that in for me to see. And when they ask how much do I have to write, I say enough for you to be able to understand it. That's all I'm looking for. So that was interest intersection. So now let's go ahead and look at lesson 5 is compound K. And let me scroll down here just a little bit. It's because one of my students' favorite activities in the class is doing Gimkit. They love doing Gimkit. We usually play it as a class, but in this lesson, I went ahead and use it as one of my technologies. I did an individual pace Gimkit. That's right here on the left. So I went ahead and just added that to the compound K lesson since they love Gimkit. And another component I would like to point out is that every lesson has had at least 2 simple interactives. And these include instant feedback where the student participates in a self-guided formative assessment on a subset of the lesson objectives. So I'm going to scroll back up past our bonus resources. The activities come right underneath your notes. So right underneath the study slides and guided notes. And in this one, I happen to have a Jeopardy game on the left, and in the middle is an activity. So sometimes they're games, sometimes they're activities. But then that way the students can just kind of test themselves as they're going throughout the material. And next, moving on to lesson 6 is investment aisles. And I will scroll down. This lesson includes a discussion forum. It's all the way down here at the bottom. So there is our discussion forum. And the students are asked to post a discussion where I've put in a format. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of small, but I've put in a format for them with some questions to answer, and then I asked them to reply to at least 2 of their peers. And the technology that I used for this is Padlet. Furthermore, another course component is a learning with animation activity, and that is on the right side. And on this one, the students can kind of play, I would say play kind of in quotes, play around with different loan components to illustrate a future value, which I think is beneficial. They like playing around with that. And moving on, lesson 7 is Auto Avenue. And this lesson includes a content video with an embedded quiz. And this one, we're just gonna scroll down. So there's video with quiz along the left-hand side. And this one is an embedded quiz. And this one was created through Edpuzzle. Next is lesson 8, Highway to Home Ownership. This lesson also includes a discussion forum via Padlet. So there on the left is our discussion forum. And lesson 9, we have Credit Canyon. And this lesson includes a content video with an embedded quiz created through Edpuzzle. So we have, there is our video with quiz on the bottom left. Moreover, the other technologies used in this section include IXL, which is on the left, and in the center is a Nearpod lesson. I'm going to scroll to the bottom just so that you do see all those, the lasting impact is consistent. It's on each of those. I know you'll be able to click through it, but I just want to make sure I'm trying to show you a good job of what it all looks like, how it all comes together. And then this last one, the Ultimate Financial Navigator. So this is where they have their final page. This is where they can access the textbook review, their online 20-question quiz is there on the right-hand side. And while this isn't visible online to you or to the students, I did actually go through and map each, as I was developing it, mapped each of those quiz questions to an objective to ensure that the goals were met and adequately represented the percentage-wise to show unit mastery, so that all of them weren't just focused on one thing, and that each thing really did map back to a specific, each question mapped to a specific objective. And on this page, you also see I decided to maybe give some options instead of just a unit exam for the students, because I feel like they would actually learn a lot from these projects that I found. The projects themselves, the technology resource that I used was Practical Money Skills. And instead of an exam, if they would like to research, like say a car they would like to purchase, research some possible loans that they could get right now and explain to me why they would go with a certain loan, which car they would like, similar activities for home or investment. So I'm just asking them to choose just one of them, to create a little presentation that they can share with the class. And then another technology I used for this section was our school district has a license to Magic School, and this is Magic School AI. And while most of our AI is blocked at the school, and I kind of want to try something with it, this is one thing they do let us use. And I used that to generate a rubric for these student projects so that they would understand how they would be graded on that project. So that was another technology that I used. And then there's that post-unit survey that I mentioned. And then you can see your final lasting impact. So to wrap up, I'd like to comment on how surprisingly easy it is to use Google Sites. I was initially nervous, but I'm confident that my students could use it for group projects. This morning, I was looking at storage facilities and was shocked at the number of websites that looked like they hadn't been touched since the 90s. With such an easy application, so many people could improve the look and usability of their website. I'm surprised I didn't know previously that Google Forms could be set up as a quiz and could provide corrective feedback. I can definitely see myself using this in the future. Another technology I look forward to incorporating more often is the Edpuzzle technology for editing videos to include embedded quizzes. So yesterday, my students began Lesson 8, the Highway to Home Ownership. I thought that they would complain about something new, like this site, and ask me why there was so much reading, like the metaphors, the story, etc., or giggle at the silly lesson names. However, they've been nothing but supportive, and many of them go out of their way to tell me how much they enjoy the activities and were impressed with the layout. For high school seniors, this unit is the perfect way to end the high school career because even though most of my students will not attend college, they will someday need to teach themselves how to do various home or work tasks through videos or readings. I was shocked at the number of students interested in the optional games and bonus resources. In the future, I plan to continue doing more than just the basic required course content and continue to ask myself and my students why. One last thing I want to mention is that I'm aware that each lesson should be broken down into smaller sections of tell, show, ask, and do for the class assignment. However, in math education, research shows that it's better not to do that. Doing so confuses the students and has them rely on memorizing and mimicking procedures rather than using problem-solving skills.
All right, that's it. Thank you so much for the experience of the course, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Take care. Bye.